Welcome to Authentic Purpose with Dr. Christine Whelan. My name is Tanya Misselt. I'm the director of the River Falls Public Library. I want to thank everybody at home for joining us today and everybody here in our live audience for joining us. We do have an interesting format. Yeah, I got a wave over here. We do have an interesting format. This is being broadcast live on our Facebook page and on YouTube, and it's live obviously for our in-person audience, but it's also recorded for later viewing. So we're speaking to several audiences as we move through this presentation. I am super excited to kick off our third annual Winter Wellness Series. It starts today and it runs through March 29th. I want to thank the River Falls Library Foundation. They pay for all of our programs and all the prizes that are offered through the Winter Wellness Program gaming that we have. I want to explain the program just briefly before we move into our presentation. This program, this Winter Wellness Series, started because of the depression that came out of COVID. And people really needed to get out. They needed to be together. They needed to reorient themselves to life after COVID. And a lot of libraries across the nation began to embrace wellness programs for their communities. So this was our way of doing that. And it was inspired by the 8 dimensions of wellness that I learned about through programs here at our library. We have a game that goes with the 8 dimensions of wellness. And I'm going to show this. This is available if you come into the library. You can't print it on our website because it's a bit of a complicated print, but this is a game board. If you pick up the game board at the library, you can fold it and it turns into our programming brochure. So we encourage you to come into the library and register for our wellness program. You get, by participating with the game, you earn tickets by checking off activities on the game board, and you get tickets for coming to our events or watching them online. And you can submit those tickets into different categories of the 8 dimensions of wellness to win prizes that relate to that dimension of wellness. And I can tell you that our librarian, Heather Johnson, is probably the best prize shopper that I've ever seen. She gets great prices and some really cool stuff. For example, if you come into the library and take one of these little pieces of paper and register to participate in the program, some lucky person will get to win a treadmill. I am not kidding. Go Plus 2 in 1 folding treadmill. And that is the grand prize for registering just to participate in the program. And there are lots of cool other prizes that relate to our 8 dimensions of wellness that you can put your tickets in to earn. So by the way to register again is to come into the library, pick up one of these slips. They're on the hold shelves, and you can slip this into a little box just to register, and your name will automatically be registered to potentially win that prize. Then when you go about doing your game board, you can either wait till the end to pick up your tickets, or you can come into the library from time to time and check out books, come to programs, get more tickets, and then you pick your tickets up at the main desk, the main circulation desk. When you get your ticket, you're going to want to put your name and your phone number neatly on the back before you put it in the box. So if we pull your name, we can read it. There are only 2 programs that you need to register for, and one is the Art of Self-Protection. That is a registration-only program. You go to our website and you can find instructions for that. That one is on Saturday, September 8th. And then the other one that requires registration relates to a 2-event program called Change Resiliency is Possible. And that's on January 16th and January 18th. And again, you can call our front desk to get registered for those programs, or you can go online and get instructions for how to do that. So I am going to segue into this program tonight by explaining the purpose of this program. It is not a New Year's resolution. It is not a diet or exercise program, and it is not a guilt trip. The purpose is to take a broader look at what wellness is in a practical way, and to change the small things that we do in life to be more well and balanced. We want you to have fun. So most importantly, the emphasis is on the importance of community and embracing these dark winter months with each other, being together and enjoying life as we go through it together and share this library space. With no further ado, I'm going to introduce to you Dr. Christine Whelan, and please forgive me as I read her introduction. Dr. Christine Whelan is the Purpose Professor at Emory University and a fellow at the Center for Healthy Minds and the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She keynotes and teaches classes on happiness and well-being, guides corporations, nonprofits, and startups as they build purpose-focused tools, and co-creates internal metrics of meaningful success with executives and their teams. Dr. Whelan is passionate about translating research into evidence-based strategies for daily thriving. She is the author of 5 books from Simon & Schuster and Templeton Press, and the best-selling Audible original lecture series, Life on Purpose. She's been published in the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the New York Times, among other national outlets, and serves on the board of several nonprofits. Dr. Whelan earned a master's and doctorate from the University of Oxford and her undergraduate degree from Princeton University. She does her best to practice what she preaches, embracing Seneca's motto, not for school, but for life we learn. She lives in Madison with her husband, their 5 children, and their Bernedoodle. I assume that's a Bernese doodle poodle. And she juggles the chaos most days with a sense of humor on purpose. Please welcome Dr. Whelan.
Oh, thank you so much for that generous introduction. It's great to be here, and to all of you who are listening and following along online, thank you so much for joining us. So tonight, I would like to explore with you a roadmap to a more meaningful life, a sort of one full of more energy and joy and awesomeness, by taking a new approach to understanding what purpose means to you. And this talk could go for just about anyone at any age. If you are parents of young adults, if you are a young adult yourself, if you are a person who is moving from one job to another, thinking about retirement or your what's next. Purpose is always important in our lives, but in times of transition, in times where we need to make a decision, it becomes all the more salient and pressing. So tonight, I really want to light a fire under all of us, because it's all too easy to say purpose is for other people, for older people, for richer people, for younger people. And it's a kind of daunting concept. So I have built a career really trying to demystify this concept of purpose and break it into small steps that we can all apply in our daily lives. And so that's very much what I hope we can do in our time together. And I'm only going to speak for about half the time because I very much want this to be a discussion. So if you have questions along the way, please keep them in mind, and we're going to have plenty of time to have a discussion. So I look forward to hearing from you directly. So what I'm going to do is talk about purpose in 3 parts. First, we're going to define purpose. And my definition of purpose is potentially a little unique. Purpose is a verb, and I'm going to tell you why. Second, I'm going to talk about the freedom that comes from not being perfect, because as we go into any period of thinking about wellness, the pressure is always on. But really, there is freedom in failure, and I'll talk about what that means in the context of purpose. And finally, we are going to leave here with a roadmap, with a step-by-step, small steps exercise that's going to demystify purpose in a daily way so that you can really see that small steps very much create a big impact in your life. All right, so that's where we're going to go. But let's start from the outset with a definition of purpose. So I'm known as the purpose professor at Emory University, and I've taught at universities for more than 2 decades. And I got to tell you that the academic definition of purpose is downright terrifying. The academic definition of purpose is your singular life aim, or the one thing that you feel like you are called to do. I don't know about you, but I contain multitudes, right? I got a lot going on. So the idea that I have to think about one thing that is my purpose makes me not want to think about purpose at all. So instead, I define purpose a little bit differently. I define purpose in terms of a purpose mindset. And a purpose mindset is really an approach to life where you can do purpose, not just do a statement and put it on a wall somewhere. You are embracing a purpose mindset when you use your gifts, what you're good at, in keeping with your values, what you care about, to make a positive impact on the lives of others. So a purpose mindset is gifts plus values plus positive impact. And really, in that sense, purpose is a verb because it's not something that you say only. It's something that you have to live and do. So if you say that you care about something, but you don't put any action toward it, well, that's not your purpose. You are not living that in a purposeful way. But when you use your gifts in keeping with your values on a day-to-day basis, that's when you very much embrace a purpose mindset. Okay. We'll dive into this a little more deeply, but I have to go back to the other ways that people talk about purpose, because you may be thinking, wow, she's talking about purpose on a daily basis and purpose as a verb, but I always thought purpose was this big thing, that guided all the decisions in my life. And there is certainly value to thinking about purpose in its broader sense, but we want to always do both. So there is a parable that is often used in the job search literature in particular, but really used when thinking about the idea of what matters to us. And here's the way it goes. A traveler comes across 3 men working, and he asks the first guy, "What are you doing?" First guy says, "Well, I'm putting one brick on top of the other." And that's totally true. Then he asks the second guy, he says, "Well, I'm building a wall." And that's absolutely true as well. He asks the third man, "What are you doing?" And that third man says, "I'm building a cathedral." Now, the way this parable is usually explained is that the first guy, he has a job. The second guy has a career. And the third guy has a calling, a sense of purpose, and a sense of why behind what he's doing. So by this parable, we, of course, all want to be the third guy, right? We all want to have meaning behind what we are doing and really to see the larger why in our efforts. I used to teach that parable all the time. I used to use it in my speeches, and I would just sort of end it there. But always something nagged at me about this. And a couple of years ago, I finally realized what it was. Well, you can see the larger cathedral, but everybody is doing what that first guy is doing. Everybody's doing what the second guy is doing as well. To build a cathedral, you have to go brick by brick. To build a life of meaning and purpose, you need to go brick by brick. And I don't know if any of you have ever done any bricklaying, but I did some over the summer. And I can tell you, it is not glamorous work. It's actually quite challenging. And even if you haven't laid bricks, I would imagine that you have done some other things that just seem like mundane things that we do in a day, chasing around toddlers, doing a profit and loss report or a spreadsheet to get reimbursed for something. All of these actions that we do on a daily basis, they have purpose behind them as well. So instead of just thinking about purpose as this big cathedral out there sort of at the end of your life, how can we imbue the brick by brick things that we do on a daily basis with a little more purpose? How can we recognize the purposeful work that we do in our daily lives? So this has always been exciting to me. The study and research of purpose has been exciting to me because I have worked with thousands of college students over 2 decades. I have worked with folks heading into retirement. I worked with AARP's Life Reimagined, gearing these messages specifically toward folks in that life transition. I've worked with CEOs and companies who are in transition. And those are the moments when people say, I really need to have a sense of purpose. I need to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. There's another quieter reason, though. Purpose tends to be correlated with all sorts of good life outcomes. So it's not just something that you need when times are tough. Purpose tends to be correlated with better sleep, longer life, higher income, better goal attainment. You actually get stuff done that you enjoy doing, and it matters to you, and thus you have more sense of fulfillment in your life. So the research on purpose is very convincing. But again, when we're talking about it in a sort of big picture way of, gee, purpose is good for you, sure, that's excellent. But let's now get down to the sort of the brass tacks of this idea of purpose. And really at the core of purpose is the idea of, what do you care about? What matters most to you, and why does it matter? And that at core is a question of values. So if you remember, my sort of definition of purpose is using your gifts in keeping with your values to make a positive impact on the world around you or others that you care about. I want to zoom in a little bit on values first, because frankly, that's one of the hardest ones. So what is a value? We could talk about that all night, but basically, an easy way to think about values are that values are choices. You choose how to spend your time, and hopefully you are doing so in a way that matters to you. So you might value ambition and success. You might value broad-mindedness and care of the environment. There are all sorts of elements of life that might feel really meaningful for you. And the question of what you value is, what are you going to choose to prioritize? There is a great list of core values that was done by a researcher named Shalom Schwartz. And I'm putting it up here, but if this list is overwhelming to you, just look away. The reason I put it up is because often when we think about values, we have a hard time identifying what the values are that matter most to us. If you're like me, you often look at this list and say, well, gee, I like all of them. I'll take all of them. Thanks very much. But we can't do that because, again, values are choices. So I often encourage people to think about 3 values that matter most to you, not necessarily for the rest of your life, but how about for this week, for this weekend, for today? Pick a small time horizon. It could be for this month, for this semester, whatever feels right to you, but pick a fairly short time horizon. I even do this on a daily basis. And think about what core values you want to prioritize right now. I invite you to jot down 3 of those, or to think about 3 of those, because we're going to use this to build our purpose statement as we go forward. Now, one of the things you might notice on this list is some of the things that are missing. So, for example, happiness is not on this list. And that's because happiness is not a value. Happiness is the byproduct of living your values. So think about what brings you happiness and joy. Think about what lights you up inside, what you care most about, what seems to really matter to you today, this weekend, short time horizon, and write 3 of those down. The next question along that definition of a purpose mindset is, what are you good at? What are you good at and enjoy doing? Not your have to skills or can do skills, but how about the want to skills that you have? What are your strengths? What are the strengths that you want to use in the coming days, tomorrow, this weekend, next week? This list comes from one of my friends and colleagues, Richard Leiter. What I like about it is, while it's not all inclusive, it is a list of active words, things that you can do to help find joy. So think about 3 activities or strengths that you find flow or that are exciting to you, that you want to prioritize in a short period of time coming up, and write those down. So then you have 3 values and 3 strengths. Now, a lot of people will look at these strengths lists and say, gosh, I have no strengths at all. I'm not good at anything. And this, unfortunately, is a problem of our modern culture where you can see somebody who's better at you on just about everything on a YouTube short somewhere. But it's not about being in the Guinness Book of World Records for any of this. It's about what are the gifts that you want to give to the world? What are the strengths that you want to share? And again, thinking about it on a shorter time horizon, so you get to do them fairly soon. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is who you want to positively impact. And to do that, I want to do a little bit of an exercise. And for all of you at home, you can follow along as well. But the way that this exercise works, it's kind of silly. I'm going to talk you through it. And my hope is that you will take this exercise and you might bring it to others. So here's how it goes. You have a pen or a pencil. You put it between your teeth, like this. And if you're with other people, you should look around, because everybody looks just about as silly as I do with a pencil or pen between their teeth. Now, it's important that you don't put it between your lips, because if you do that, you frown, and we don't want to frown. We want a smile. Yeah? Like this. Okay, now, researchers have found that when you put a pencil or a pen between your teeth and you smile like this, it forces what's called a Duchenne smile. And when you have a Duchenne smile, you tend to think that the life is funnier, that the world is better. And if you are looking around at other people, my bet is that you're giggling a little bit right now as you're looking around, because we all look kind of silly doing this, right? I've always loved this experiment, but I do think that something is missing from it, because I believe that the reason why it lifts our mood to do this, especially in a group, is because purpose is pro-social, because happiness is contagious, because when we do these things with other people and see other people acting silly, acting playful, acting joyful, that lifts our mood too. Purpose is pro-social, meaning that it is about using your gifts in keeping with your values to do something meaningful for others, not to hold it all in yourself, but to join with community, to join in person, to give of yourself in a way that matters to you. And I love thinking about this idea of pro-social behavior around purpose, because it really is about giving of yourself and also receiving as well. There's a lovely story that a teacher posted on Facebook years ago about how she wanted to teach her class a lesson about pro-social behavior. So what she did was she gathered her class in the hallway, and there were about 30 or 40 kids. She handed them each a balloon and a Sharpie marker and said, write your name on your balloon, and then throw those balloons down the hall. So all the kids wrote their names and they threw their balloons down the hall, and all the balloons got all jumbled up. And she said, okay, kids, now you have 30 seconds to go find your balloon. On your mark, get set, go. So all the kids go running down the hall, and they're elbowing each other out of the way, and they're desperately trying to find their balloons. 30 seconds is up and no one has found their balloon. So the teacher smiles and says, all right, now, calmly, everyone should grab the balloon that is closest to them. Look and see whose name is on the balloon. Now you have 30 seconds. Go give your balloon to the person whose name is on the balloon. And in less than 30 seconds, all the kids had their balloons back. And so what the sort of message of this story was that purpose is pro-social. Happiness is pro-social. When you're only looking for your own, well, it's a lot harder to find. But when you engage with others, when you reach out to community, when you are giving of yourself, that's when happiness and purpose really kind of find you. So these three elements of that purpose mindset, your values, your gifts, and what your impact, who you want to positively help, all come together in the beginnings of what I like to call a Mad Lib's purpose statement. So you can kind of fill in the blanks as you go. Because I value, and then pick those 3 values that you chose that you want to prioritize over the coming days. I'll use my gifts for, and then you put in your gifts and strengths to positively impact the lives of, and then you have a group, a cause, a particular individual. It's up to you, but how do you want to use your gifts in keeping with your values to make a positive impact? What I love about this exercise is that it takes the daunting task of beginning a purpose statement and turns it really into a pleasurable exploration of possibilities. Because I think if I had asked you 15 minutes ago to write your life purpose statement, or even write your daily purpose statement, you would not have known what to write. But doing it this way, at least it gives you a little bit of a draft. So this is mine. Because I value relationships, broad-mindedness, and creativity, I'll use my gifts for translating research, making connections, and organization to positively impact the lives of my children, my students, and the broader public. And when I read that, I'm like, yeah, I'm totally there. I love this. I'm kind of energized and jazzed by this statement. But here's the problem. That's just a statement. I have to figure out how to put it into action. And this is where we get to part 2, which is there is freedom in failure, which is another nice way to say our best laid plans don't go according to plan. And we have 2 stories in our lives that derail us often from trying to live our purpose. So you can make a beautiful purpose statement like I did there, and it seems like it's really all go-getter, right? And that's how I lived the first part of my life. I wanted to be perfect. I felt like I needed to be perfect. If I wasn't perfect, I wasn't going to be loved. If I wasn't perfect, the whole world might fall apart. That quest for perfection gave me a heck of a lot of anxiety as well. I tried to show perfection to the world, but that anxiety grew larger and larger because I was trying to hide it. I believed I could not lead a purposeful life if I was anything less than perfect. A lot of us have these fears and anxieties, and when you have them, it kind of feels like you are slogging through the mud on a day-to-day basis. No matter what you do, you're not living an awesome, joyful, energetic life full of meaning and purpose. It just feels really hard. And that's what my life felt like for a long time. It just felt really hard. I was trying to do the right thing, but I was exhausted. What changed for me was when I realized that, you know what? Everybody has fears and anxieties. And if we continue to try to outrun them, well, it just exhausts us. If we try to push them under the rug, they seep out sideways as passive aggressiveness and irritation. But if we say, you know what? I acknowledge my fears and anxieties. I have them and everybody else does too. Well, then it gives you the freedom to really live the energy and awesomeness that you want to live on your path to purpose. I'm making this sound very easy. It's not. It takes a long time to have the ability and the freedom and the sort of self-knowledge to wrestle with some of these fears and anxieties. You don't have to do them all right now. I just want you to know that we all have fears and anxieties along the way on our path to purpose, and that acknowledging them, and in fact, even listing them, which is what I'm going to encourage you to do. No one has to see this list, but think about the 3 fears or anxieties that might derail you from living purposefully over the next couple days, this weekend, next week. What are those fears and anxieties? By listing them and showing them in the light, it really takes away a lot of their sting, and it allows us to plan to kind of work around some of them. The third and final part that's going to come into pull into this idea of a really workable daily purpose statement is around this idea that small steps lead to big impact. Now, I've been talking a lot about the idea of doing this as a daily purpose statement, right? So when you think about how to use your gifts in keeping with your values to make a positive impact, when you think about understanding and acknowledging those fears and anxieties, the final step really is, what are you going to do? What are the purpose-based commitments that you are going to make? And that's what I call them. I call them purpose-based commitments, but the word commitment may be a little much. You could maybe call them purpose-based practices, or you can just simply call them goals, because it's the stuff that you're actually going to do. You can think about it as purpose-based commitments as the how with the why. The why it matters, you've thought through already, and now you have to think about the how you're going to get it done. So if you think about what are some purposeful things you might commit to today, tomorrow, over the weekend, think about one of them, maybe two of them. And then here's the question: would you do it today? This is where the idea of purpose kind of comes to action. It becomes not something for later, but something for now. And when we think about the things that we are willing to do today and can do today, well, that's actually a lot shorter of a list and a lot smaller of a bite than some of those more amorphous things that we might otherwise put on a purpose statement. And that is absolutely the point. Because my encouragement for you is to take the leap, is to be like this fish. I anthropomorphize this fish all the time. What do you think this fish is thinking? I mean, why is the fish jumping to begin with? Is the water salty or hot or something like that? Or is the fish pushed by pain in some way? Is it pulled by possibility to go to this lovely other pond? I don't know. But I can tell you that I've thought a lot about whether this fish is going to make it. And I very much believe this fish does make it into the bigger pond. And the reason why I care so much about this fish is because I identify with this fish. I think you probably do too. Anytime that we are doing something risky, like thinking about our purpose, trying to put these things into action, we're taking a leap. So the leap that I encourage you to take, these last two pieces of this purpose statement exercise, is to embrace those fears and anxieties that we all have. They're real, they're kind of scary. Whatever comes to mind that seems top of mind today, list it, because those are the things that might derail you as you try to put something into action. And that something is the final piece. Those goals, those purpose-based commitments, the purposeful possibilities that you really want to prioritize. And think about it in terms of how you can take action today. What can you do today or tomorrow? Not next year, not in July, right now. So when I do this, I put it all into one purpose statement exercise. The first sentence is the one that I showed you previously about my values and my gifts and who I want to positively impact. Well, then I have my fears and anxieties, which for right now are not being perfect enough, dropping the ball, and making the wrong choices. That's just today's batch of anxieties, but there are many, many others. But I say I still make conscious purpose-based commitments to try to give a great keynote to you, to celebrate my babysitter's graduation with my 5 kids tonight, and to prepare for my luncheon keynote tomorrow. Now, as you look at this, something inside you may be saying, now, wait a second, she's the purpose professor. And I was kind of hoping for some statements that were like more earth-shattering. This looks a lot like her to-do list for the day. And that's the point. That's what I love about this exercise. Because you might think, well, these are 3 things, but they're not like that big of a deal. They're not super purposeful. She's not changing the world. And yet, I am using my gifts in keeping with my values to make an impact on the people and causes that I care about most when I take these actions. And so brick by brick, I'm trying to build a life of purpose. These are all the small bricks that build the wall, that build the cathedral of purpose in my life. And what I'm encouraging you to think about as you think about authentic purpose, as you think about doing these exercises within your family, within your work communities, within your social groups, think about this idea of, how can I turn purpose into a verb? How can I build a life of purpose brick by brick in an authentic way? To do this, I have all sorts of tools, and I have all sorts of tools that I am excited to offer you and the River Falls community for free. So I have an analog purpose-based worksheet where you can do your daily purpose statement. You just print it off. It's a PDF. You just print it off, and then you can write on it every day. It has a little date thing on the top of it. And if you'd like to edit it and change it and make the wording more suitable for you, go for it yourself. This is a tool that I hope is going to be useful and customizable to meet you where you are in your life. The other option I have is new, and I am working on a digital purpose statement exercise. This is an opportunity to just kind of do it on your phone like we do just about everything. And with this purpose statement exercise, rather than filling in the blanks just from your head, there's a drop-down menu where you can choose from a list of these values and these strengths to really give you kind of a head start. Now, to receive all of these, I have one favor to ask of you, which is that I have begun to really build out my speaking career. And I'm trying to speak to more groups. I'm trying to get as much feedback as possible. And I'm going to build a mailing list so that I can send out information to people along the way. So if you've found this useful, if you want to share it with others, I encourage you to either scan this QR code or to go to that link, which is talk.ac/Christine Whelan, and enter in the code library. And you are going to be asked a couple questions, nothing too onerous, and then you'll get free access to both of these resources so that you can continue your journey of purpose. So I will end with just the reminder that purpose is a verb, and that it's something that we can do every day when we use our gifts in keeping with our values to make a positive impact. That there is freedom in failure because that means we're human. That means that we are trying and doing something that we care about, and it's certainly not a failure unless we don't do it. So really trying to put these daily purpose statements into practice is a way of encouraging us to celebrate those small wins, because small steps really do create a big impact. And those incremental steps lead up to, brick by brick, the wall that leads to the cathedral that really builds the life of meaning that we are all trying to build. And one final thing, I have heard that my book, The Big Picture, has been being checked out of the library often over the last couple of weeks, and that is terrific. That's an excellent book to give to any young adults in your life who are looking to build purpose, and to sort of, it's a workbook really geared toward asking and answering these big questions. And then for those of you who like to listen to books, I have an Audible original lecture series that made it to the Associated Press bestseller list, and that's available for a free download off of Audible with a subscription. So I'll leave it there, and I will open it up for questions and comments, and I look forward to hearing from you and to continuing the discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Christine Whelan. I would like to invite the audience, if you have any questions, just make sure you speak loudly and let us know what you are thinking. Go ahead.
I'm curious, and thank you for the presentation. I'm curious what you find is the biggest challenge for people when we're thinking about doing this for ourselves. What's going to get in our way?
So I think first, the biggest challenge around purpose is that it's something that doesn't seem like it's a to-do for today, right? We can think about a million things that are more pressing for us than thinking about our purpose in any given day. And so it often kind of becomes something for later, for, when we're older, for when we have $1 million, for, whatever. And so I think that the first thing is to actually bring the thing that is meaningful to the forefront. The second thing is that I think that we also then tend to feel like it's another thing that we have to do. But what I like about this daily purpose statement exercise is that actually is more like a pat on the back for all the things that you are doing already, and really basically seeing a lot of the stuff that you do in your day-to-day life as purposeful and recognizing the purpose in what you are doing. So certainly the idea of doing this on a daily basis is probably ambitious for most people. But if you did it on a weekly basis, I have a colleague who does it on a seasonal basis. And she said that she does, one for each, a purpose statement for each season. She says she also has a different Monday to Friday purpose statement than she does weekend purpose statement. And she has found these are sort of ways to be able to explore different parts of herself and give herself the ability to prioritize, because no one likes to be locked into one thing forever.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Any other questions? I see, can I pick up a board tomorrow from the library? Okay, I'll answer that in a second. Okay. One of the things I'm interested in, Dr. Whelan, is how you got into this field. And I'd like to know a little bit more about you. Like, what is your master's degree in? What is your doctorate in? And how did you personally migrate into this topic of study?
Well, so thank you for asking that. Yeah, so when students would come to my office and say, like, how did you get where you were? I always give them two choices. I said, I can answer the question in a way that like sounds really good, or I can tell you the truth. And they laugh, and they always go for the truth, which is that, like most people in our careers, we kind of go through various different interests at different times. But I would say that the thread that runs through all of mine is around behavior change and what works and what doesn't in terms of building a life that matters to us. I did my master's thesis on changing dating and marriage patterns in the United States, as seen through men's and women's magazines. So I studied dating and the advice that we got about dating and finding a mate. And then I did my PhD on the self-help industry, on why we buy and read self-help books, and who buys and reads self-help books, who is the audience, and do any of them work, and what is the advice, and who writes them, and what makes a self-help bestseller. So I was trained as a journalist, so I've always been very interested in the printed word, whether it be books or magazines, and my degree technically is in economic and social history, but really it has a bit of psychology and sociology in it as well. And I got to this topic because I have been teaching college students for almost 20 years. And in that time, I've kind of co-created several books with them around what are the questions that people aren't asking, young people in particular. And so I wrote two books geared toward college students, Generation WTF and The Big Picture, really allowing college students to ask those questions that they otherwise didn't feel like they had the space in a university setting to ask and answer. And the biggest question that came up was those questions of purpose. Why am I here? Does any of this matter? What is the meaning of it all? And so I really sought to demystify that and partner with my students around that. And then I moved from that period of transition, young adulthood, to the period of transition heading into retirement with AARP, and I spent several years doing that. And now I'm kind of in this middle zone where I'm trying to sort of see the common threads for everybody as in our times of transition, whether it's transitioning into a new job, transitioning out of a relationship, all of those times where we kind of wake up from our day to day and say, gosh, is this who I want to be? And what do I want to do next? So in those moments of what's next, that's when purpose really becomes salient for people. And I wanted to offer some research-based really rigorous, but also accessible advice on how to do it.
So first of all, you answered my question well. I was wondering if it was psychology or sociology, and it's both.
It is.
um, Getting back to your discussion about self-help books. So as we're getting ready for this winter wellness program, we of course go out and look to see if there are any new self-help books out there. Do you consider your book a self-help book? And what is your opinion, since you mentioned it, on some of these self-help books? What are some of your insights that people might be surprised about?
So first of all, I am a big believer in seeking. I think it's wonderful to seek to be better, to be happier, to have deeper relationships. And I think it's because I'm a seeker myself that I seek out these books. One of the one of the many challenges with self-help books is that they are not peer-reviewed. They are not researched in any empirical sense. So you have to take them all with a grain of salt. And I think if we read the self-help books like the research suggests that we do, we read them loosely. We take the advice that resonates with us and we ignore the rest. Then we can have we have a fairly healthy relationship with these books. I will say that one of the challenges of self-help reading is that most of us don't get past chapter 3. So what we tend to do is pick up the book. We will get a boost of self-efficacy because we'll say, gosh, I've done something to make a change in my life. Aren't I good? And then you'll get to chapter 1 and 2, and then you'll start telling your friends that this book is really fabulous and it's changed my life. And then by chapter 3, life becomes busy and you put it down and you're going to totally get back to it later. But you don't. And then you go check out the next self-help book. So, and the cycle continues. So I think the idea, will a self-help book change your life? Sure. Any self-help book could change your life because really it would be you making the decision to change your life in some manner. Are self-help books a way of seeking out inspiration, of sort of giving us that extra boost as we are in the pre-contemplation phase of behavior change? We can think about changing a behavior for years and years before we actually take action. And that time is valuable. We are thinking about it, and then one day maybe we're going to decide to do it. But reading self-help books can be a way of getting yourself there. Don't beat yourself up, though, if one self-help book is not the be-all and end-all for you.
And don't beat yourself up if you quit at chapter 3 too. That's just fine.
It is, because that is totally fine too. It is and actually don't generally try not to beat yourself up about most of these things,
Right.
because the thing about self-help books is that they're supposed to be, they sort of say they're like tailored uniquely to you, except that they're trying to sell 1 million copies to 1 million other people, and so everybody is different. We're all an experiment of one. So
Yeah.
customize things to work for you, and so that's what I very much feel about my work. It's not my way or the highway by any means. I'm giving people lots of suggestions. You pick and choose what works for you.
So I have to confess that I feel very validated tonight with our program here, because the purpose was very much social, and the joy of being together. There was so much sadness with COVID, profound sadness from just being away from the life that we had before, and the restaurants and the theaters and everything that made us culturally human, being together, and then just being online all the time. It was just debilitating for a lot of us. So the purpose of this was to bring joy back to the community. And I would just want to make a point here before we close tonight, that the purpose of libraries themselves are not just about the books that we have. I don't care if you stop at chapter 3. The purpose of these community libraries is to bring the community together, to offer a place to think and see your friends, run into people, come to programs and meet new people. And it's just a safe place. So this winter, If you are in the routine of coming home from work, eating dinner, watching TV, playing on your phone, and you start to get sad, we're here. We got lots of fun stuff going on. You don't have to check out books. We have these fun games going on. Bring a friend. Maybe you'll run into somebody that you haven't seen in a long time. So please do come to the library. I do want to tell you about something that's going on this weekend. On Saturday, we have a very large fair that's happening here that pertains to wellness. We have a lot of different people in the community bringing resources that they have to offer in a wide array of wellness issues. It is for all adults, but it does also have a focus on parents and anybody who works with children. So parenting is tough. I don't care when you did it, if it was 50 years ago or if it's today, and it certainly seems like it's getting more complicated. So we are offering this fair for all people who take care of children and also just all adults. There are, not only will there be a bunch of vendors to check out, hang on, let me get my notes here. So on Saturday, it starts at 10, the fair starts at 10 and it goes till 1:30. From 10 to noon, that is actually the fair down here in the lower level where you can go around and look at one vendor or another, and nobody's selling anything. So don't be afraid to come down here and talk to people. Nobody's going to give you a sales pitch. They'll tell you what they have to offer, and you can't buy anything here. From 12:30 to 1:30, there are 2 different panel discussions that you can join or you can watch. It's Empowering Students' Well-Being, Insights from Front Lines of Mental Health, School Mental Health. And the other one is Positive Parenting Practices, Supporting Emotional Well-Being in Children and Families. Come on down to the library. Thank you to our live audience for coming in. Do you? Okay. Okay, we have one more question. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So River Falls is a very college-educated town with a significant portion of our residents being transitional. And libraries in this area have got a large group of money from the state that, and I think that it is amazing the purpose of the students of this university in River Falls here has changed from 2020 to 21 to 22, 23 to 24, and looking forward to 25. It is amazing because we have changed that there's now 21-year-old first-year students. And I think it's important to realize that as a community and with purpose, how do we, they're different. They've been incubated in a system that is sheltered and it's hard to describe the guardedness of their thoughts. And as an educator, how do you think that as you look at these individuals, how do you have them at year 4 or 5 going out to the world, reevaluating their purpose of coming to a college to educate themselves? I mean, I apologize for kind of being a broad, weird kind of question there, but.
Do you need that question repeated, or are you following that, Dr. Whelan?
I'm mostly following, right? You're really asking about sort of the purpose for college student, the purpose of college right now, especially for students who are coming in with a sort of non-traditional heading into college.
Correct. I mean, they're all of them are now. They've had, sheltered years.
Yeah. Yeah. So to me, this is where getting back to basics is very important. I love the focus on pro-social and community behavior that you have at the library. And the more that can be done at the university as well, bringing people in person together to have experiences. I tried to get rid of phones in my classroom at one point, simply to try to get people to talk to each other before class. Really, I think there needs to be a focus on resocialization and of getting people to interact more, because I very much believe that purpose is pro-social, and it involves giving and being with others. and working with others. And to do that, you have to actually have some agility with working with others. That's very challenging for young people who have been isolated for years. So I think it's imperative for us as adults who were socialized when socialization was more of a thing to be teachers, to invite young people into our spaces, and to show them what these interactions can be, because that on its own will be purposeful. I'll just end with an example of my 16-year-old, who certainly spends a lot of time on screens and playing video games. I encouraged him recently to get a job at the local grocery store, and this has lit him up. It has totally changed his whole sort of attitude on life, because he's interacting with other people. He is out there, he is bagging, he's restocking the shelf, but he's working with a team, and he sees that there is sort of life in these loose connections, and that he himself can be purposeful in his work and in a group. So, encouraging these kids to do as much of that as they can, and to get out there. I think that is purposeful work that we purpose-driven adults can certainly do.
Thank you.
Thank you to our audience that came in a cold, snowy night. Thank you for those watching at home. And thank you very much, Dr. Whelan. It was such a pleasure to talk to you and meet you. And yes, we do have 7 copies of her book that are all checked out and have been for quite a while. So put a hold on one of those and you get a chance to read it. So thank you very much. Have a good evening, Dr. Whelan.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening to everyone. Thanks for including me.
I love libraries.